Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Love Unravelled. I'm Holly.
I'm Isabel.
And today we are going to go over the sort of ins and outs of what we outsource versus what we do in-house, which we have covered a little bit about this on podcasts before as kind of under the how we've scaled so far. But we thought, I definitely would find this interesting if I was listening to the podcast and I was new, just as far as what areas are we, and also what I'm looking at sort of in the next few years, which roles I'm looking to expand and things like that, like where we're just growing and what we've found and what's worked and what hasn't worked. So you start us off.
Abby and I are going to find out in this podcast whether they're going to be here in a couple of years or not.
Basically, I'll be like, what I envision for your role is maybe somebody who toes the line.
Basically, we're getting axed. Is this what this is? This is our one-to-one. This is our one-to-one.
This is like those horrible things where they do like mass redundancies on a video. And they're like, so everyone's job is no longer. Goodbye.
Yeah, but Holly just saw this as a marketing opportunity at the same time. She was like, let's just kill two birds with one stone. One, it'll be a great listen. This is how you lay someone off. Okay, so the things we've spoken about before is fulfillment is in-house, and you have always envisioned that to stay that way, that you would much rather grow your own fulfillment team.
Yes.
Rather than...
We've seen, actually, we've sort of, Isabel and I have chatted to quite a few other businesses who are bigger and smaller than us, who have used fulfillment, and ones that don't and have their own in-house fulfillment. And I definitely feel that for our products, our knitwear and the customer service aspect, I think it will work. It works a lot better for us to have someone in-house or eventually a team of fulfillment, but it will be in-house. It won't be done through a fulfillment center. And I think I definitely see why people use them. And I think if we had different products where you didn't need that kind of level of care with them, then yes, I would probably look at using it. But where we are, I don't think it would ever work.
Yeah. I also think that if you're just starting out in a business, I think, and you start thinking about fulfillment, I think you think of it in a very black and white way, which is literally somebody fulfilling your orders, but actually having the stock here and fulfilling, doing our packing and everything, sending stuff out and also receiving returns here, it actually touches lots of areas of the business. So like when we can actually see the stock, things like ordering becomes easier. Stock checks for our accountants. Again, imagine having to do like stock stuff with a full foot, like all of that. You're either doing a stock check yourself or you're managing a fulfillment center, and is their stock check correct? Is it, have they put stuff in the right box, the wrong box? How much care are they actually taking over stock management? Like it actually is, the ripple effect is much bigger than just a fulfillment center sending and receiving orders. It is much bigger than that. So, and also playing into the hand of customer service. So that's something, again, that we'll always keep in house. I think that the kind of stats on our returning customer rate is not only because the Slow Love product is so banging, it is because we do have a really tailored approach to our customer service, and that will always, it's been like that from the start when it was literally just Holly. And then it's transitioned from Holly to me, and then from me to Shah, and actually the growth of that is become, I remember at the very beginning where people were basically like, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to talk to Holly. And as the business has grown, that's grown, but keeping that in house, it's always been.
It definitely got to a point where I was saying to Abby, a level of customer service that was coming through every single channel. So email, DMs was just constant customer service. It was very, very there was no off at all.
That process of moving any customer service out of your DMs was really long, wasn't it? Do you remember?
We still have it quite a lot, but and we've got it in our bio that if it's anything regarding an order, because this is really boring, but anybody that runs their business from Instagram will be like, oh, it's the most annoying thing in the world. You can't file properly. You can't file a DM response. So if I have someone, and because their Instagram handle might be something totally random, somebody will ask a question or something about their order, and throughout the day we get so many DMs. That person's DM just gets lost because you can't kind of mark it, you can't remember their name and then find. It's just really hard to keep on top of. So one way that we dealt with that in the end was saved responses. So because I personally really don't like when brands have automated response, because you can't tailor it to the subject matter. It's just you get an annoying thing saying, hello, I'm so and so, and we don't man these during. I just have, if it's to do with an order, we have a saved response that I'll just send saying, thank you so much for getting in contact. This is Shah's email. She deals with all order queries. At least then it's instant. I don't lose that DM, and I feel that person's getting a response, even though it's a sort of robotic. It's a robotic response, but at least I'm like, okay, they know they need to email Shah, and then it's like that's sort of dealt with. But it took a long time for that to feel more like it's not kind of filling our time, mine and Abby's time, because we both respond to all the DMs still.
The only thing we have outsourced from a kind of like a customer service perspective and order management perspective is we used to manage all our returns over email, and as we've grown that just became just unmanageable basically. So we now use a company called Swap, and they have like a returns portal. And actually that was probably something that we could have done much earlier than we did, but actually we found
we didn't know what portals. We tried some and we didn't know.
Or there were like so many hidden costs, weren't there?
And loads of brands just gatekeep with that stuff. They wouldn't. So we remember we were looking at different brands and they were like, their returns portal's really good, but it doesn't say where it is, and they wouldn't reply to a message if we were like, oh, do you mind just telling us? So we use Swap. They're really good.
They are really good, and actually their product offering is quite extensive.
They've just had a second round of, well, not just, it was a few months ago, before the tariff stuff actually, so really well timed for them. But they had a second round of a lot of funding, like 20 million or something, so that they are growing at a rapid pace.
They are really good and actually really helpful. Their customer service is really helpful. So that's kind of how that's evolved. Fulfillment and customer service is very much in-house, but we've got Swap to kind of streamline the returns process for us much better. So now Shah's time isn't spent entirely on her email managing returns.
And our actual returns rate's really low for an e-commerce brand. So how other brands do that in-house, I can imagine it's really overwhelming. And
that like having your stuff in, being able to see kind of what is being returned and why, again, is such useful data. Like, it's not data that you can always capture online. Like visualizing, it's like visual data, isn't it? Which you lose so much of that when you have a fulfillment
and just things like you said, the tailored approach to customer service. For example, when we had our Black Young Hearts waitlist and it was in the thousands, if we'd had a return for one, it just meant that Shah had the ability to hold that one jumper, for example. She could privately email the first person on the list to say to them, look, we've just had one back, would you like it, and offer it within that sort of wait list. But if we put it online on our website, it would trigger the entire list. So just little things like that, which was so it means it's just a lot easier to sort of give that really personal, bespoke approach to customer service, which I think loads of places just don't offer.
I think marketing is a big one. So again, on previous podcasts, we've spoken a lot about how it was all Holly and Abby on a very kind of clipped amount of time during the week, and she would give Holly homework, and
still does.
And but that relationship has grown. So Abby now works 3 days a week in the office, and does shitloads of stuff outside as well, even when you're on holiday.
I know. She
love it, don't you?
She does work very hard.
I'm just too obsessed.
You are obsessed. But yeah, that's again something that's kind of great. You guys are in such regular contact and always batting. Oh, Holly and Abby literally sit next to each other when Abby's in the office, and there is just a constant dialogue, like on your phones, like on between WhatsApp and face to face, and actually that is probably pretty priceless, having that. Not just like, you know, one meeting a week with a marketing team must be so tricky. And actually I think that's so many organic ideas come from you guys being face to face so frequently. And obviously there is a plan, but some of this stuff can't be always like, oh my god, did you see that? This is a great idea, let's create that. And then the market, it's very fluid. In the beginning, when you guys first started doing ads, we
outsourced to an ad agency, which was it was really amazing. It definitely helped grow scale. And the way that we did that was Abby would create content, and we would send it to this ad agency. So they were using, and we would sort of, by that point, we'd trialed so much organic content. We knew what was kind of working. So we were able to offer that. And this particular agency would integrate with our platform, so they could see, you know, what was kind of what we had in stock and things like that, the sales that were coming in to convert, because it's changing all the time. But something that we have shopped around quite a few times just to kind of make sure that we're keeping our toes into what's happening outside of our kind of in-house brand is in. So we were looking at agencies, different sort of agencies, finding out how they worked, and it's the data that you get from Google or Meta or whatever is always quite biased to in their own favor to sort of. So this one agency was really great. But we've now have that in-house with our little pring-a-ling-a-ding-dong.
Pring-a-ling-a-ding-dong! He's next door, so we hope you can hear that.
And
so Abby's other half is called Ben Pring, and Pring, the name Pring has really evolved into
Pringo.
Pring-a-ling-a-ding-dong, which is not big and not clever and not funny, but it is funny.
My mum now calls him that.
Does she?
So Ben now does all of the ads, and again, kind of like the fulfillments. Actually, one of the things when we were outsourcing the ads, I especially had no idea how the ad thing worked, and actually it transpired that we were spending money on ads on pieces that we didn't have stock of, because actually it was just like another thing on your to-do list was like, oh, has anyone pulled the stock report for the ad guys today? And it's not that they weren't asking for it. It was just, we were such a small team. It was like another job to do or remember to do or whatever. And actually,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was a lot. And actually having Abby in-house and her knowing the product so well, moving the ads in-house, actually, we had made such headway into that side of running ads. And, you know, Abby would be like, we don't have much of those, do we? Or, I took that photo of that person that would make a really good ad. So much of that interaction has now just become really organic, which...
It's a lot tighter. The controls are a lot tighter of that sort of management.
Yeah.
Which is really reflected in our conversion rate going up this year. Yeah. Which has been amazing.
Yeah. I feel like if you're listening and you're just starting out, it's like that's happened over a number of years. You know, you're not
trial and error.
that has come from a lot of trial and error, and it's not, you're never going to find that out of the box, but it is a really good thing to plan towards. So growing your marketing, and if you can pull that in house in the end, that's a really good kind of like forecast of your, like a plan for your business to have, is outsourcing. Learn as much as you can when you are outsourcing it, but then slowly but surely trying to bring that in-house with whoever you hire.
I think also just the person who's going to be sort of representing the brand from the marketing point of view. Obviously, I'm going to shout about it so much because I'm the founder, but ultimately if you outsource to an agency who you're not seeing on a regular basis, they don't know the product the way that people work in-house will know it. All of that just naturally then makes it feel like that you don't, the sort of the key elements of what makes that new piece of knitwear different is just everybody's learning about it through sort of just osmosis of chatting about or even throughout the sort of sampling phase. It just means that that's all just naturally, everybody knows what the right things to say, what the key selling points are.
Yeah.
So that works very well.
Actually, that's a really good point, is keeping all of those, like the fit checks aren't done on models, they're done in-house. That's such a great one that we actually hadn't really put on the list, but is so important. That Holly it works both ways. She's getting really honest feedback because no one's like, oh, I'm just going to be polite because this is really nice. It's like, God, this is not flattering, or this is blah, blah. But then we're hearing Holly being like, what do you think about, or Grace being like, what do you think about that really technical term, or what do you think about the if you had said to me 2 years ago, what do you think about the gauge, or what gauge, and I'd be like, what the fuck is that? But now actually they're just all these like buzzy words that we know and we've learned, and it's just very organic, very natural. So the marketing has also, as in what the type of marketing that Abby does. So like the podcast is really new. So that's all been, rather than, as the marketing's grown, Abby's time has just grown rather than outsourcing. But when we started doing the podcast, we were all quite naive in how much time it would take for the editing.
Yeah.
So that's now been
outsourced,
hasn't it? So we have to be on our best behaviour, because some poor soul is going to be listening to the entire uncut version of us waffling on. We go on so many tangents on these podcasts, and actually not so much now. They're all pretty clipped, and we do quite a good job of not waffling. But those early ones were super waffly, weren't they?
Yeah.
So other than the
Ali was like this after the first few ones, right? Before we started filming, I got some feedback from last week.
There isn't much feedback now, is there? Other than take your ring off, because I always clank on there. Put your phone on do not disturb. Don't move too far away from the microphone. Other than that, from a marketing perspective,
TikTok. Well, social media. I mean, Abby does the newsletters, so that all comes under her umbrella.
Yeah,
newsletters. The TikTok is something that we have just started to we've reinvested in.
Yeah, so it's still in-house, but we've taken
it's
on
in-house.
another.
We're not doing any TikTok ad style stuff yet, but we have brought in a TikTok lady, Kate, who now is creating that content for us, and we are very, very active on there.
Yeah.
And this has been, so she's in 2 days a week, but that's sort of her baby. So I'm involved in it, but it's not taking space in my brain for the week. Abby is managing Kate, so I guess it's more Abby's managing it, but it's also not something that Abby's like, we need to film these TikToks. Whereas when we first started doing TikToks at the very, very, very beginning, we were kind of using the same content for both Instagram and TikTok, whereas now it's totally separate.
Yeah.
So sometimes if we think our Instagram followers will particularly like something, we will pop it out on Instagram. But I mean, it's like 3 videos a day at the moment on TikTok, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So that's in-house. We're not using an agency. Kate comes in, just cracks on. So that's brilliant.
Which again was so important that she came in.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to be something where someone was out.
Yeah, that's a very
Of the
good point.
office.
I think I think the running theme in lots of the things that we've learned is actually that kind of face-to-face is
Especially on the
is
marketing.
really important. Yeah, from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
I don't want that to sound like we only like working from home and flexible working doesn't work, by the way. We are still Holly has an amazing flexible working policy at Slow Love, which is great for all of us. But there are definitely some things which it plays into the success of the business, the content, the marketing, the organic conversation there is something to be said for being
You can't. I think
face-to-face.
there's
You can't
so
recreate
many.
that.
There's so many changes all the time, and that's something that Abby found frustrating. I think when you were coming in a couple of afternoons a week, or whatever, was that there would be a change.
Yeah.
And this way, there's so much new things happening at the moment that actually it's everybody being in the office. It's a really good way for everybody to feel. I mean, there are definitely some times where that causes more problems because not everything. That's something that Isabel and I might discuss about, which we were just doing in between podcast filming, about, have we commissioned enough of this particular jumper at the moment, because I feel like this year is slipping away from us so quickly. But that's a conversation you and I have one-to-one. But when everybody has input, it just sometimes can become too much.
Bit of a
hindrance. It takes too much time, and it's ultimately, and that also is a problem I think with some design stuff, is when everybody jumps in. Whereas you might have a very clear idea of what you want and everybody has an opinion, it can really dilute it. Ellen was saying this to me with one of the places she used to work at, and basically then you end up with like a Frankenstein version of that design because you take on too many opinions.
Yeah.
So I have to always be quite mindful of that, and it's not because I want certain people's opinions and not others, but there definitely has to be like a line where...
Yeah, of course. Sometimes too much information, like too many cooks.
Yes,
that
exactly.
classic phrase is so underrated. It can really muddy the waters, can't it? So ad photography is a really good one. That's something that Slow Love have always done a real hybrid of. And Holly's got a really good kind of vision of what requires something really glossy, and we've spoken a lot about Heidi on various podcasts, but Heidi is someone that I don't even know how you found her. Was it just online, like the street style? But
following her street, I think she just popped up.
But we kind of gelled really well with the brand, and creates just such her style is just so perfect and so fitting for so much of the kind of the really glossy stuff that we want to show. And then Abby does loads of stuff literally from her iPhone, and has more recently upgraded to a very snazzy camera, so you kind of do a bit of both on there. So all of our Palmer photography was done by Abby on her camera.
When we do our content trips, we have the disposable cameras,
really which nice. Is so nice. And the vlog, that was another thing. Did you buy that for New York? Was that the first time, the vlogging camera and the like bondage harness that it comes with? So that's something that we do, really hybrid stuff with, actually, which kind of plays quite well into if whatever we do modelling. So obviously our content trip is always in-house because it's just us. And then Abby and Holly have always very much kind of hand-picked people that we want to work with. And again, we've spoken about this on previous podcasts, where we always try to choose influencers who have either already bought the product because they're already invested in the brand, they themselves have found it, they've loved it, and they've bought, and then we've subsequently worked with them. So we've always handpicked that, rather than going through kind of big influencer management companies. We have done that a few times, and some have worked and some have there's just a very stark difference between that really organic fit and then possibly not quite right. That's not saying that it doesn't work for other brands, but we've just found that for Slow Love, it's definitely been like night and day.
Yeah, we have had a very clear way of working, which we've trialed different things, as Isabel just said, but we definitely stick to our approach, which is much more of an organic fit.
Yeah, and I think that customers can really see that. I think, and
I find it fascinating how people want to be, like, not want to be given a script, but I've always just very much been like, well, we want to work with you for a particular reason, which is your content's great. I'm not going to tell you what to say because I just think that's a really dishonest way of doing it. Just you do what you would normally do, and obviously tag us and all of that stuff. And that's always worked really well. But I find it amazing that people would give scripts to somebody. It just feels it doesn't feel authentic at all.
Yeah. And actually, some of our best engagement is from user-generated stuff rather than influencers with huge followings. So again, we've spoken about this on previous pods, but that kind of demographic is definitely, it's moved.
Yeah.
And the way that people are accepting those relationships is also changing. So yeah, we kind of feel like we harness that the right way, really, from the get-go for us. And that also is the same with models. We've done, again, when we've worked with Heidi, there's been a couple of times where she's chosen the models, and then for those glossy pics has worked really well. Mm-hmm. But kind of for like our casting call was for the sizing charts, the sizing page on our website, that was just a really successful thing. That, again,
it was successful because you were organised with it.
Yeah, the organisation was good.
We didn't do anything through an agency. It was all done in house.
Yeah, and actually being able to. Abby's yawning. It was only a matter of time.
Did you see how I
she tried. She
tried
so to hide
hard,
it,
but she was like, "You guys are getting really fucking boring."
Didn't work. So, like, hand picking the models that we feel like are the best fit for our brand and also best fit for our customer base. And again, that really has, listen to us being like, that's paid off, we're so good. But it has, again, the amount of people that come to us and say, God, it's so amazing seeing your items on people that basically look like us and not, amazing professional models, which definitely have their place in a marketing strategy, but we are very mindful of keeping that balanced.
And it has to be realistic because we are selling online.
Yeah.
So if we were to show the knitwear on the wrong sort of an unrealistic body shape, it's going to, people won't trust what we're trying to sell them. It all comes down to trust.
It really does. And actually, I suppose keeping as much as you can in-house without it crippling your business, actually almost, I think, that doesn't make any sense, but almost makes the trust process easier.
Yes.
Because you have a grasp on so many more avenues. Having like that really clear understanding, and not when people ask us a question, we really do know what we're talking about, rather than being that constant, I'm not sure, let me get back to you on that. Actually, most of us are pretty well equipped because everything is.
Oh, yes. Everybody's multi-talented.
Yeah.
I definitely couldn't file any accounts.
You don't need to. That's your job. That's not your job. And
Thanks.
If it was,
we'd all be in trouble.
We would be in trouble. So things we have outsourced. So we discussed the podcast editing. Mm-hmm. Some of the photography is outsourced. I mean, accounting is such an obvious one.
Yeah.
Having that wrapped up from the get-go and not having the headache of like changing accountants. And basically, I think, again, we've said this on a previous pod, invest in a good accountant that is a specialist in the area that you're doing. And actually, interestingly, Michaela, who the jeweler that we've done the necklace with, we had recommended our accountant to her because they are just so good. Mm-hmm. They're not the cheapest, but they're amazing. And the branch she spoke to locally to her, our accountant, he's a guy called Pete. If you're listening, Pete, we love you.
We love you, Pete.
He knew the guy that Michaela was talking to knew Pete, and he was like,
Did she speak to someone
at Crow in
really?
Birmingham, the Birmingham branch.
Yeah.
The guy that she spoke to knew Pete, and he was like, yeah, he is so amazing and like renowned specialist within Crow for what he does.
Go on, Pete.
I was like, go Pete!
His head right now is
yeah,
going to be like,
if he is listening, he's going to be like, fuck yeah. And consulting, you've had some meaty meetings with some
yes. So
with some specialists in different areas.
Yeah, I very fortunate to have somebody locally she's very experienced in the world of e-commerce and scaling. So she has worked with us, especially last year, and everything that she'd suggested we implemented and did make a big difference. And we trialed some, and it was good. It's just things, and we've had this with, accountants, and for a company of our age, size, we obviously know certain things are working well and what's not working, but you don't really know if you've not got a breadth of experience. It's like, well, how well is this working? So and what can we do to improve different areas, and how do we grow this? So that was really helpful for me to do that, and then sort of filter it down to Isabel and then everybody else. But then we were just talking about our office space. So at the moment, we've basically each year have taken on an additional office space. At the moment, we are, apart from on a Tuesday where Ben pretty much has to sit on Abby's lap to do his work because run out of space, we're kind of at a comfortable size at the moment. At this very moment, we're comfortable, which now from it going into our 4th year, in my head is telling me we're not going to be comfortable for long. So we need to start thinking about how we will work.
Getting a really, really big girl office.
You're going to get a really big pants. Basically, yes, we're going to have to, I don't know what we're going to do, but it's a constant thing. It's a little part of my brain that's always watching. They're just having a look at sort of next step.
Yeah. I just actually thought of it's not off-piste, but thinking about, just talking then about really investing in a really good accounting firm, and then also having the relationship with the consulting, the lady that you have spoken to about any consulting. It's, as a small business, would you agree that, and Holly, I know I'm not talking out of turn because we have said this on the other podcast, is actually none of us are experts in anything. I'm not I do lots of the finance stuff with Holly, but I'm not an accountant. I have absolutely zero accounting training.
That's a lie.
I mean, other than that I've had with Crow since I started here, but prior to that, it's just been kind of learning on the job, just stuff that I've done. Abby is completely self-taught in marketing. So what we are is a really cohesive team.
Yeah.
So would you agree that the kind of success of the way that we work is, although none of us are experts, we really gel as a team, and you can bring in those expertise as you need them, rather than hiring an expert accountant? Probably wouldn't have been as in a
bookkeeper. I mean, because Pete is an expert.
No, but as in like hiring. So rather than hiring me,
you
would hiring an actual accountant to come and work for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, initially.
Or like having a finance department, in those early stages, like hire people rather than expertise in the beginning.
Yes.
I know what I'm trying to say. Do you know what I mean? As in like, don't worry about, there are experts out there in all of these areas. You don't have to like hire the experts.
I think for the day to day running and how we can function as a team, it definitely had to be more about who you guys were as people and your work ethic. And like, as you said, as an example, Abby works all the time, but she'll never turn up and be like, well, I had a great holiday, but I had loads of work to do, so that's just not her. And it just means that it feels very much like we can just constantly be moving ahead, cracking on. No one on the whole complains. So that couldn't work. We couldn't have evolved and moved the way that we had, I think, if we had sticklers, if they were experts.
Yeah.
And we've been lucky that we've been able to dip in and pay experts for what they've needed. And yes, probably in 5 years' time, we will need to have but maybe somebody here who's doing wages, blah, 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 invoicing. At the moment, Isabel and I do all the paying of the invoices and I do the wages, and that's fine. Although already it's like, minibus as an example, I just suddenly was like, I don't remember paying that. Did you pay it? And you're like, no, I don't think so. You know, you can see already that
Abby's dad's gonna come and knock you on the door.
There's little elements where that we might eventually need somebody where that will be a sort of its own department, or somebody that works underneath you that maybe does that as part of their role.
Yeah.
A Teabags, for example.
Yeah.
Teabags is Tia, who comes and helps us on the holiday. She's very efficient.
Yeah, she's great.
But I think that's probably where I know what you're saying. Traditionally, if I was to speak to somebody who maybe is of old generation, I can imagine that the advice I would be given is you need to get a proper accountant to be with you, telling you what to do, what you can spend on. There's absolutely no fucking way that they would say, or allowed me to do the Hoxton or the content trips.
Yeah.
But it works. And I think there's definitely an element where, and that's what scares me for the next stage of our growth, is where I've had conversations about stuff that needs to probably happen to move us up. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, because I think it will be a huge jump or different things like that. But we are doing things in our own way.
Yeah.
And I think, like you say before, as long as we're always open about what is working and what's not working.
There's undoubtedly going to be some
doozies
and some like, oh my God, how have we done that? Or we need this to get through that in the coming months, I imagine.
Yeah.
Juicy growth.
Big old juicies.
And the light box. So we used to. We've
used it. We've used a sort of studio before that do sort of cut out images for press, like flat lays. And we've basically bought our own light box now and do that, although it takes up a lot of space in our office that we're slowly busting out of. So
yeah, and it's ugly.
Yeah. She ugly.
She is.
She big and she ugly.
She's cumbersome and ugly. But she's cheaper than sending a load of stock to a studio to photograph for us.
It's the turnaround as well, isn't it?
And also because
we don't have shitloads of product being made and pumped out every week, it means that when we release a new tank, for example, we don't have to pay for 10 items at a go to be photographed for hundreds. We can just do one at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Because there was that time where it was like, oh God, the studio that we're using, quite rightly, lots of their business models is there's a minimum spend, because
otherwise
actually shooting one product is kind of the same amount of time as shooting 10 when you're in it and you're doing it. So they have a minimum spend, whereas Slow Love, obviously, as most of you know, don't work like that. We'll have drops in the year where there's like a big collection like the spring summer one that's just launched, but actually there's just little top-ups of a new product, and then by the time we've done that and we've kind of possibly sold out, and then that was just a big fat waste of money. So yeah, the light boxes, and using that for the sizing. It's not just product photo. We've used it for the sizing guide. We've got possibly trying using it for content. creating videos for content. So yeah, it's definitely been am I right in saying it wasn't thousands of pounds, was it? It wasn't.
No, I think it was like £300.
Yeah, so actually your return on
Ish.
investment of that is fucking sweet.
I know. I mean, I know that Shah will probably want me to say that somebody will be packing underneath her. But really, I the way that I probably see things at the moment is I think you will need somebody to take on how that works, or whether there's a reshuffle. I feel like this is opening up a bit of can of worms.
Do you just need someone to listen to my jokes all day?
I think you will have to probably have somebody that can do things for you. I think also just it was quite eye-opening when you had to go away, because I didn't want to contact you all the time, but there was certain stuff that we needed answers for, and you were the only one that could give those answers. Just little things like that maybe. So you might need to have an assistant of some sort to help you to do that, and maybe cover other bits, because maybe help with a bit of customer service or whatever. And I also think probably with what we've got planned this year as far as new stuff, we might outsource a little bit for sort of different shots, depending on how we want those products to be marketed. And I think Abby's going to have to probably manage those people as opposed to doing that work herself. So I think that's probably where I see that growth. But I'm sure there's probably going to be some discussion about how that's going to go.
Yeah, it's so because I think outsourcing isn't necessarily always about literally taking it out of the business. It's hiring. I mean,
for example, Kate comes in and she'll get stuff done, but then she might need me to, like you did when I was in London. Abby needed me to send a voice note for a voiceover, and just little things like that can actually probably be done at home. If I need to spend more time thinking about the actual designs as opposed to answering questions about whether or not we should send somebody a replacement before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just think there's got to be those little things tied up, I guess, so that we're using our time a little bit more efficiently. Yeah. I definitely see Abby managing marketing, her own marketing team, and maybe spending less hands-on time doing stuff. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to doing that, and then you'll be getting those people to do it like you did with the Courtney shots or whatever, and just reviewing it and using it and sort of managing that. That's how I probably see things growing in that way. Great.
We get to stay.
Yeah,
we get to stay.
So all in all, we're staying. Our jobs are still secure. If I left, you'd never laugh again.
Oh my God, it would be bleak.
Never laugh again. Charlie would have to fill my jokey sheets.
He couldn't. Okay, would you rather at the Hoxton, you're not allowed to talk. When we got there, we were setting up, not allowed to talk. Just be there, having a cup of tea, watching us all set up. People putting leaflets out how they wanted. Stacking the knitwear how we wanted. Just doing it as we wanted. Yeah. You kept your mouth shut. Yeah. Or, so either that, or you shit your pants when you were in the minibus on the way back.
Shit my
stuck
pants.
on the thing.
For two reasons. One, because I'm me. And I would not be able to help myself. Grace, just a caveat this, okay? We set the room out so nicely and it looked amazing. And then Grace littered the leaflets around like it was some kind of nightclub.
I actually was the one who dotted the leaflets around. I didn't tell anyone.
There we go.
It was only so that they were there everywhere. People weren't like, oh, what's the price? It was just so that they were there.
Well,
like it was a nightclub.
And
if you shit your pants,
myself,
you could have got
how funny
would
Ben. That been? Yeah. If imagine Ben in the back, he would have
sat next to you.
On the way there, or on the way back, he wasn't even.
What trousers were you wearing again?
Probably white ones, maybe. No, on the way there, I was wearing just wearing a pair of black, plain black trousers, Abby, wasn't I? Just plain black, normal trousers.
There you are.
I would pee my pants.
That was a great one. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.